Everyone, this video is going to look at the development of television as part of the Leisure Unit 3, Theatre, Stage and Screen. So your starter today is to calculate how much time you have spent watching TV shows in the last 24 hours. And no judgment, you might want to keep this information to yourself, but if you would like to share it, it's always amusing. And you can see at the pictures on the screen here just how much televisions have changed over time. Like not only how they look, but also the size of them, the quality of the picture, but also like I don't really watch TV anymore. I tend to stream a lot of things personally. So we're also going to look at that change as well. So pause the video, date, title and task, please. So I'm briefly just going to show you how technology has changed over time, just so you can kind of see what we're talking about. So in the late 1920s, you've got a mechanical television, pretty inefficient, not going to lie to you. They would display a blurry, kind of reddy orange picture, about half the size of a business card, so teeny tiny. Then as we move on to the 1940s, you get more countries that are producing televisions and broadcasting channels as well, but are still not hugely popular, very expensive. As we get into post-war, so after World War II, TV sets are beginning to really explode on the marketplace. They are the latest must-have. But it's not until the 1960s where TV is kind of available on a mass scale. So most people would have a TV by the 1960s. But it's also absolutely insane because in 1967 you get colour television for the first time. So a little bit different to what this timeline says, but it's 1967 where you get colour TV. And like it says from the 60s, they're now a regular part of home life. And by the 1980s, these are probably going to be the televisions you're more familiar with, so the thinner versions. And we, of course, start getting high definition, streaming, and things like that. It's pretty cool. So, we're going to think about now for our entertainment in terms of quality or convenience. So I'm going to give you a scenario. We'll imagine that, we're not in COVID lockdown and that a new film has just been released. You've got two options. You can go to the cinema to see the film, or you can stream the film illegally with the risk of computer virus and, breaking the law. So in your books, I'd like you to copy out this small table in blue, and I would like you to list the pros and the cons of doing these. And then in the chat box, can you just write which one would you do and why? The first thing your scheme of work kind of wants you to know about is kind of the replacement of the cinema as the main form of entertainment with television. So by the 1960s, television had replaced cinema as the main form of mass entertainment, and many cinemas closed down or were converted into dance halls and bingo halls. And it paves the way for the early TV stars like the Marx Brothers, who are brothers with the surname Marx. And I just like to draw your attention to this fella, because you can't unsee him. So can you pause the video? Just summarise the text at the top about television replacing cinemas as the main form of entertainment, and then you need to know who the Marx Brothers are. So they're a comedy group of brothers. Okay then, so let's start looking at television. So at the beginning of the 1950s, the television was very much a luxury item, with only 350,000 homes owning one. But by 1961, 75% of homes had a set, and by 1971 the figure had risen to 91%. In 1966, the price of a new television was £70 at a time when the average income was £12 a week. And so most people either bought one on hire purchase or rented one. So that hire purchase is effectively you put down a little bit of a deposit, then you pay a monthly fee, and then at the end of that time period you will own that product. You might have to pay some interest, so if the TV was £70, you might end up paying £77 4 years later. There was only one channel in the early years, the BBC, which transmitted mostly news items, current affairs and serious drama. But there was coverage of major sporting and news events, and over half of the population of the country crammed into the houses of family and friends to follow the events of Queen Elizabeth II's coronation in 1953. You can see her coronation picture there, when she becomes Queen officially. Transmissions were tightly controlled, with no more than 2 hours before 1 p.m. and nothing between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m., which was known as the toddler's truce. So basically, they stopped the programmes after 6 o'clock to tell that young children there was no television after 6 o'clock, and that was a way to get them to bed. But that ended in 1957. Now, what that says about the BBC's attitudes to parenting is another video altogether. At weekends, there was a maximum of 8 hours allowed on Saturdays and 7 hours and 45 minutes on Sundays. So very, very different to the 24 hours a day we're used to. And television went through a number of changes in the 1950s and 60s. Independent television, or ITV, was set up with regional companies, which partially explains the shift towards more popular programmes like quiz shows and soaps, rather than just the standard news features. Quiz shows such as Double Your Money were very popular, as was a soap opera called Coronation Street that appeared in 1960 and was scheduled to run for 13 pilot episodes, and the rest, they say, is history. So please pause the video and get down the key information on this slide. By key information, I'm going to mean anything with a date, a statistic, or a fact. You should easily get about 10 from this slide. So entertainment programmes like Saturday Night at the London Palladium, which is kind of a bit like Britain's Got Talent, really, and American imports such as I Love Lucy saw people desert the BBC and switch to the other side. Ooh, I know. In 1964, the BBC introduced a second channel, and both the BBC and the ITV televised the 1966 World Cup final. It was the last time England won, and 32.6 million people in Britain saw England beat West Germany 4-2 in what remains the most watched programme ever. During this time, all programmes were in black and white until 1967 when colour arrived. You can see there. Now, we kind of take colour TV for granted, and I mean, I personally wouldn't watch a black and white film because I find them a bit boring, but it was revolutionary to everything you look at the leisure unit. Like, you wouldn't be able to watch snooker being played in black and white because, as you can see, the balls are coloured and you can't tell what ball's what. So, particularly for sport, colour TV was absolutely game changing, no pun intended. By the end of the 1970s, people watched an average of 16 hours per week in the summer and 20 hours during the winter. And Channel 4 was aired in 1982 along with S4C in Wales, which is the Welsh language channel, with the aim of appealing to a wider audience. The choice of programmes was increased with the introduction of satellite broadcasting by Sky and BSB, or later Sky BSB, and cable television further increased the number of channels on broadband cable. So again, please pause the video and get down the key facts. Okay, and this is kind of just a side note. We will look in a bit more detail at computer games in the children's entertainment lessons, but it is in this section, so I'll just briefly mention the stuff it talks about. So video games hit the market in the late 1970s, and games like Pong and Space Invaders became massively popular, particularly with young people. And accessories such as VCR players, which are videos, DVDs and CD-ROMs, which are pictured, and more sophisticated personal computers meant that people could watch films in their own homes on their own timetable. And the home theatre experience led to manufacturers producing huge plasma TVs. Home video consoles like PlayStation, Xbox, and Wii were hugely successful and not confined just to the younger generation. But arguably, and I think you'd all agree with this, the most important development has been the internet and iPhones with multiple applications or apps, which allow people to access television programs, social networking, and chat rooms have also increased massively in popularity. But there were concerns about cyberbullying, grooming, invasion of privacy, and identity theft. So your task now, once you've got all those notes down, is to design an information leaflet for prospective TV buyers, so people who want to buy TVs in the 1950s, and you need to explain to them what they can expect after their purchase. And I've put some ideas you could include: the Queen's coronation in 1953, the Toddler's Truce, TV regulations and timings of programmes, the development of ITV, and of course the popularity of quiz shows. So this is going to be an information leaflet rather than a poster, please, for obvious reasons. And if you fancy a challenge, try and do a modern day one as well and compare what people want from a TV set now versus what they did in the 1950s. Please make sure your work from today is emailed to your teachers, and then go ahead and complete the Show My Homework quiz 3 times.